I remember growing up, my grandmother, who also has albinism, always used to say, "Baby girl, man, kuri wait again. You must fake it until you make it." Hello, totally inspired viewers. Welcome to another exciting and informative episode of Totally Inspired. My name is Esther Mutlabane. I'm 30 years of age. I was born and bred in Pretoria. I describe myself as a young black woman who happens to have albinism. So I grew up in Mabopane. I attended a school in Mabopane, very close to where I was staying, and I spent most of my life in Mabopane. And thereafter, my mom got this really cool school in the Pretoria CBD, called Princess School for the Visually Impaired and Blind, and that's where I spent most of my boarding school life. Thereafter, I went to study a diploma in public relations and communication management at the University of Johannesburg, and currently I am pursuing my postgrad qualification at the Tshwane University of Technology. Growing up as a child with albinism, I remember that I encountered so many challenges. Three of the challenges that I can highlight that I remember so well is I remember that early mornings were a misery getting to school. I remember my mom asking a cousin or even a neighbor to accompany me to school because I would be name called all sorts of names on my way to school. So by the time I got to school, I was already miserable. And then I also remember that the teachers at the school used chalkboards to teach us, and it was really difficult for me to perform at my best because I couldn't see well. And I would always be required to sit in front of all the learners and listen to the teacher teach, or try and see what the teacher is teaching on the chalkboard, which was really, 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 really difficult. One of the most traumatic experiences of my childhood life. And I also remember that I also encountered discrimination from extended family members. Even when I was younger than my grade 4, 5, it was a very challenging time in my life. But I also remember that my mom was always there with me through each and every challenge that I encountered. So, how I cope with challenges as a result of my condition is, firstly, I'm an open book. So, I talk a lot, but I also talk to people who are understanding, who I know whose advice will be very fruitful. And I know that when I go to these people and I speak to them or I talk to them about the challenges I'm encountering, I know that the advice will always, the advice is always best, and these people can be literally be family members. It can literally be people that I regard as people that are close to me. So that's the first thing that I do. So I talk. I will literally say, this is the situation I'm faced with, this is the challenge, and because of my condition, I am encountering so and so and so and so, and I know these people have my best interest at heart. The second thing is I write. So I have a journal that I keep with me where I write all my experiences, no matter how bad it is, no matter how terrible it sounds. I write all my experiences in my journal. The third thing that I do is that I face the challenge, but I also address it as well. If it can be addressed at that time, at that particular time, that's what I do. I address it immediately. People think we don't die, which is untrue. The second thing is people think that we are the first carrier of coronavirus. No. The third thing is, which is actually the saddest, most triggering thing you can ever comprehend, is that people think our limbs, our body parts, parts of our skin have magical powers. Not true. No, my condition does not impact my self confidence or self esteem. But it used to. It used to, because people were constantly staring without saying a word. And that, for me, was very strange. So, but I got to understand that as I grew older. I remember growing up, my grandmother, who also has albinism, always used to say, "Baby girl, ah, man, kuri waiting. You must fake it until you make it." Translation is to say, baby girl, you must fake it, the confidence, until you make it, until you become the most confident. So early on onwards, my grandmother emphasized the importance of self-confidence and a good self-esteem, and I've learned that ever since. I can say yes and no. I can say yes, it has been become a barrier, because every time when I would say that I'm visually impaired and I have albinism, people will start acting really awkward after having that conversation. The second thing, no, because I always tell myself that as resilient as I am and as hardworking as I am, the opportunities that I get are because of my resilience and my hard work. I think my greatest support in my life is my mother. My mother, um, my mother is the first person I call when I have good news, the first person I call when I have bad news. My mother is a cheerleader. Like, she cheers me on, she allows me to make mistakes, she allows me to grow or to have room for growth. My mother is non judgmental, irrespective of how bad the situation is. My mother is like my best friend. And when I want to vent, she's there. She's there to listen to me. And she's so calm. My mom is so, so calm, the most calmest person ever. So the one person who inspires me is my grandmother. My grandmother inspires me because she is the first point of reference of a woman with albinism. My grandmother taught me the importance of having a good self-esteem. She taught me the importance of understanding my condition. She taught me the importance of having as much knowledge as you can or have. My grandmother is just all round amazing woman, because I remember when I graduated from UJ, she and my mom were the two people I wanted by my side, because that's just how much my grandmother means to me. The type of help that I would like to see for persons with albinism in society is, one, free and accessible sun care products. I find that sunscreen is very expensive, irrespective of where you buy it, irrespective of the type of brand you buy. I find that sun care is very, very expensive. So I'd like to see free and accessible sun care products provided for persons with albinism, because the sun is very, 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 very dangerous and very it's not good for our skin. The second thing is, I would really like to see schools and NGOs working together to teach teachers and parents about albinism. I think I find that in schools, especially in mainstream schools, I find that teachers don't really understand the condition albinism and how it affects the eyes and how it affects the skin. And I think that type of education is very important. I think the third and last thing, and I think it's actually very, very important, is I'd really like to see government in societies coming and together to create laws that protect persons with albinism from brutal killings, because that is the one thing that is very scary and triggering. If you read about it in the news, you get to see that persons with albinism are not safe in society. So I'd really like to see laws that fiercely protect persons with albinism from brutal killings. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and happy International Albinism Day.